Yeah, and yeah, another
Okay.
thing I kinda noticed last night that I think you overlooked, or at least something that kinda I wouldn't say pissed me off, but it was more like, okay, uh, paganism. Do you know where that word actually comes from?
Paganism.
Yeah. Do you know where that word actually do you know the history behind that word? Because there's certain context to that particular word where, yes, it can be described as old religions before, um, Christianity, but it is not for all religions before Christianity. That's a context most people miss. It's only a very particular type.
Yeah. I guess to be honest with you, I'm not really like a historian. I don't know like everything about the history. I know some stuff, but I probably do lack a lot of knowledge on certain things. I'll be
Yeah,
honest with you, right?
yeah.
Um,
Still,
but I might have been generalizing some of this stuff. To be honest, I was trying to just kind of avoid it altogether, but I got kind of
mhm,
forced into it. So I probably there's obviously a lot more respectful way to say things about stuff, right? I
yeah,
just sometimes things get heated and like I wasn't really like prepared to want to deal with it. I'm sure I could have said a lot of things, a lot nicer, right? Well, there's a lot more like a kind way to say things. Um,
yeah.
so, but no.
Still, the concept I have for the sorcerer kind of character I want to play around with, the subclass kind of puts it into perspective, but the overall idea of the sorcerer I had was more going along the lines of my character does have their sorcery powers, but it comes from a curse based off of their bloodline. Um, the idea is that a ancestor of his, not a direct ancestor, but a ancestor within the family, tapped into some maybe forbidden magics or some other things, and it unlocked certain abilities for them. But it also caused a problem and it affected everyone of that particular bloodline forward. Have you ever seen the show? Have you ever seen the anime Demon Slayer?
Not not really, to be honest. I know a little bit about it, but not too much.
It's similar to that. With it's not much of a spoiler for me to kind of explain this, but the main villain, through a act of science and maybe magic, it's never quite put into focus exactly what and how he did what he did. He was able to create a coction that gave him supernatural abilities, but it affected everyone else from their bloodline. And that's kind of the idea that I'm thinking of. So, with this in mind, my character has basically been like, okay, he knows that the curse exists, it affects everyone in their family, and let's say it's been going like 200, 300 years. At this point, it has gone for long enough that everyone that is living up to this point in the family, the curse has gone for so long that yes, it would be very difficult to get rid of it by a normal means of a cleric just casting remove curse. Because with curses with a bloodline, it is it's not really written in stone, but more often than not, if you are born with a affliction, like let's say you were born with the ability of a werewolf, a cleric can't just do remove curse on you. It's part of who you are. It would be similar to this. Um, with that in mind, the curse makes it to where they're able to draw powers or draw some magical might from other creatures and bring it into themselves. And it would be more accurate to say a copy than to bring. It would be more like the ability to copy magics done to them by other creatures. Um, I guess another example would be, have you ever seen Dragon Prince on Amazon?
Yeah,
Not Amazon, Netflix.
yeah. I'm pretty sure I've seen that. Yeah, the Legends of Ario or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen
I
that. Well, most
it's
of it. Yeah.
it's very much similar to something like that, the way that dark magic works in that world, where you don't have magic of your own, but you kind of bring it into yourself. So the idea of the blue main subclass is when a creature, magical creatures do their spells against you or do certain things, you can do a check to quickly see if you can try to copy that, like mentally try to copy that and turn it into a possible spell for you. The idea is that their bloodline has made their bodies somewhat unstable, which allows them to have this ability, with the drawback that some of the abilities that they take become physically part of who they are. Later down the line in the subclass, it has the ability that you can take a passive or defensive traits from a creature only if you feed on the corpse of that creature. But it has to be like, okay, if you want a certain power, the power you're looking for has to be part of that um, body part that you're eating. So the idea is that if you can eat that body part and absorb the magic, it becomes physically a part of you. However, it's not a natural process, meaning that if you fail the check needed to do this, it can very much make you sick or ill. Because it is not just your body rejecting it, but the magic that the blue mage has kind of doesn't mix with it. Um, so that would be kind of the idea I'm going with. It's someone who has this ability, knows how it works, kind of trying to work with their family to be like, okay, let's understand how this curse even works. And then throughout the history, his family has been trying their damnedest to find a way to cure themselves of this disease. Basically, of this cure, of tried to cure themselves of this curse put upon them. Um, with that in mind, one of the things that I had as an idea is that, okay, when they cast this magic, when they cast these special spells or magic, a part of their physical body shifts to be more aligned with whatever creature they did. So, for example, let's say there's a Nif or something that has like a healing touch spell, and I'm able to get that. Well, when I cast that spell, my arm, my hand, and my hand and maybe half of my arm slowly turns to bark and turns into a bark. And as I touch, it becomes stiff. And then as I cast the spell, after I cast the spell, the body slowly goes back to what it was beforehand, but it's not a quick process. So it wouldn't be uncommon for after the spell, my character would be like take bandages, kind of wrap around their arms, their legs, because yes, it is somewhat painful. And there's this always this kind of mix between, yes, they're trying to use their powers to help, people and trying to use the gifts they have, but understanding that it is a double-edged sword for them.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm not against some of these things, but I feel like my world does have a few, like, I guess, call like rules, or like certain things I try to like push or not push. Like, 'cause my world kind of has like this, it has like this, I call it like Christize, or it Christianizes like the world, right? So it usually has some kind of like a Christian message, I feel like, on some levels to it. And I try to promote certain values or not go against certain other things. So I'm not against the idea of like a curse perhaps on a character, or they're struggling with an issue, or even the idea of like a bloodline. Some of these things are actually really interesting, like role play perspective. But I mean, for me, for me, a lot of things are like the sources of where certain things come from, and maybe the terminologies. So if I can work around those, I'm more okay with it. Um, so I mean, like, if I edit this character idea a little bit, it might be able to work better. Um,
And by all means, I'm all right with that. Just the overall concept or the core idea that I want to go with is someone who is dealing with something that they didn't really have any control of having, and they're having to deal with the consequences, but also at the same time, they're actively using this curse to not only lift themselves up, but to help others. Um, I would
yeah, I did.
imagine
Oh, sorry. You keep going.
From what I heard last night, you kind of have a Witcher class or a Witcher type of setup.
Yeah.
This this is very similar to kind of the Witcher aspect, but instead of the more physical side of the Witcher schools, it would be more of the magical side. Still involving some mutations and all this other stuff. Um, I think even if you go into lore, The Witcher, I think there might be one of the houses where they lean more into the magical side, so it's not unheard of. Um, it's just for this, they kind of have this thing that is affecting them. Um, I I guess another
Um.
way of saying
Oh. Oh, sorry.
you
Keep
go.
keep going. Keep going. You can keep going. Just
Yeah.
keep going.
I guess another way of saying it would be as far as the magic and how the church might react to it, the family has gone out of their way to help the church, or at least help the communities that they're in. So, in some ways, I can see maybe the overall church doesn't like or even and tries to acknowledge this particular family. So, the individual priests will turn a blind eye to them, knowing full well not only does my curse actively try to help, and in many situations, my family probably has history, or at least in some ways has done research on both the magical and non-magical traits of creatures and knowledge. So if anyone's facing something unusual, I could see my family being the one going, hey, we may not recognize this creature, or we know exactly what this creature is. This is how you deal with it. Um, Another aspect that I think would be kind of interesting is the first born of every generation. It is almost certain, if not guaranteed, that they would actually carry the curse. And in their early kind of the idea I had was in their early life, around 5 years old, you would know if you are a bearer of this curse because you have a knack early on to kind of understand, maybe not understand, but you have this almost primal understanding of something medical or something. biological. So for some of them, they show signs where there's like, okay, maybe as children they didn't know what was needed, but instinctually you're like, oh, I can wrap a bandage, or I can wrap a like I could take a stick, wrap around this and kind of help with the broken bone. Things that for most people you would have to have very particular knowledge, very particular training. For them, it's more of a knack. And then others, they're like, oh, maybe they became ranchers and kind of help with animals and pets and that kind of thing, or anything along with that. And as they grow up, around the ages of maybe 10 to 11, the sorcery part starts to come out a bit more. And that's when it starts to reveal itself, going, okay, you definitely have this curse upon you.
Okay, so I guess for me, even in my world and my lore, the idea of curses existing, I feel like I like a lot of the idea of this character. I've been messing around with this actually. I was building something similar to it, but I feel like so like in my world, I guess like maybe like God would curse somebody for some reason, and maybe again something that maybe like future families, generations have to suffer from now. It could be for any number of reasons, like why
Mm-hmm.
certain fantasy races exist in my world. Maybe like because like maybe there was like originally there was like an elf maybe, but then there's like a chaos twisted version of an elf. So and then there's like
Yeah.
maybe like the elves had like some kind of an angelic lineage. I think I got that from like the Lord of the Rings a little bit. But then maybe like I call them like the abyssal or the like twisted elves. Maybe they got something from like a demon, some blood lineage maybe somehow, or a curse at one point. So it's like differently, yeah. Even the sources of where everything kind of came from, right? At one point, or maybe there was like a dragon, and dragons weren't viewed as like evil; they were just like something. Maybe they were even good technically, and then there's like a curse maybe at some point, or they fell from grace, and they got like kind of locked up or put in a dungeon maybe, and something happened, and then like maybe hundreds of years later, stuff came about. So
Mm-hmm.
like this curse on your family could have been like, I mean, like figuring out the exact reason why. Maybe God cursed the original family lineage for some reason, and now like you're kind of stuck in this pathway. Maybe you didn't control it and you didn't choose it, right?
Yeah.
But you're kind of stuck with it. And there's for some reason you don't even necessarily know why exactly. Um, so it's like, and then also maybe maybe there is like there's conflict because like you have like some kind of you feel like there's a divine purpose and reason, but you're also conflicted with a bunch of other stuff that maybe you don't like it, but you still have it anyways.
Yeah.
Um,
I could definitely see that working. And the idea that I think would be really cool is, yes, the original one who may have did the techniques to get this, they might have been like, yeah, no, they understood what this power could wield, and in doing so, they fully unlocked it. However, the next generation, and I say they weren't directly a part of the family, so I'm thinking like maybe an uncle or something, where maybe two brothers, the idea, and one is where my character's lineage came from, but the other one was the one that fell. They didn't have any more kids, but the bloodline of the other brother was affected by it. So now it is one of those going, okay, let's say it's been going on for 300 years. At this point, the family is put their effort into trying to find out, one, how was this power originally came about, because it definitely seems as if it was some form of forbidden magic of some sort, hidden. Once they have an idea about where the source might have come from, a lot of them debate about, okay, if we understand the source of where this came from, could there be a reason why we are originally cursed? Then there's other parts of the family go, okay, doesn't matter. We were cursed. We know we've been cursed. We don't know the source of where this power originally came from. Let's just keep going looking for the source. And then you have another part of the family that looks at the first two group and go, fuck you two. Yes, this is many of us consider this a curse, but for some of us, we don't see it as a curse. We see it as a blessing. And we use our abilities to help others. Does it matter that eventually, at some point, we're going to become a monstrous kind of Frankenstein monster of multiple different traits? It doesn't matter how monstrous we appear. As long as our hearts are pure and we are helping the community and helping everyone around us, it doesn't matter what our bodies look like. It is what our souls and our hearts of hearts matter. So there is honest debate among the family of how many of them take it. For my character, he's still trying to come in terms about what his powers can really do. And I imagine for him, he spent a good number of his years both being trained what his powers in theory could do, but also he's less of a physical person and more of a, okay, I'm going to do research. So for him, he's more of the scholarly type of personality where, okay, he does research on magical creatures. He does research on the weirdness of the world. So for him, he can go to a place, kind of look around and be like, oh, it might be this creature that's affecting the community, or it could be other things. For example, it could be there's a creature that is normally very calm, very gentle, and normally not threatening at all. But for a very particular community recently, there's been these weird occurrences. Well, my character might know, okay, this creature normally doesn't react to any of this stuff. It doesn't do a whole lot of stuff. But I can tell it's reacting negatively to something. Maybe by doing some research in the area, they find out going, oh, it has a special tree or it has something special that's in the community, and the community did something to mess that up. If we restore it back to what it was previously, the problems will go away. And seeing as there's already a Witcher type of stuff, I imagine for this family, they might have not been directly involved with creating the Witchers, but I can see this family and the Witchers working very close to each other because there's almost this kindred of, yeah, everyone else sees us as monsters, but we're not.
Okay. I like some of these ideas. Yeah, and also just it makes sense, and it would be very easy to incorporate them together because I already have like those witchers, or I call them like supernatural hunters. Yeah, they kind of like mess around with like they interact with like supernatural and elements and stuff. Yeah, and monsters and all that. So,
And
um,
for you can go.
oh yeah, I'm pretty okay with it. I'm not so like I just try not to promote like actual sorcery for the player characters. I mean, sorcery exists in my world though, technically though. I just try to have the players restricted from actual like magic itself. But we could like kind of shift your character to have it be like powers or maybe just like a different terminology. So it's not like magic, but it's like something, something different, right? Then I'd be fine with your character having access to that. Um
I think personally, if we did it like that, I would feel like it would not be fair to call it something like a miracle. Because I
yeah,
feel
I
like
feel
if you use,
oh, sorry. I think you're right about that though. It's not really like a miracle. I mean, I call it probably more like a power or it'd be some type
yeah,
of it wouldn't be like evil, but it'd be something not it wouldn't be like super holy pure, but it would be
yeah,
something like something fine though at the end of the day.
yeah. Like, for example, the whole thing of the changes. For my character, every time he casts one of these special spells, if it's temporary, the body heals over time. It could be a couple hours, it might be a couple of days, according to how powerful the spell on quote unquote was. But when it becomes to the more permanent stuff, the body might heal a little bit, but there's always going to be some physical traits. For example, it might be if he feeds off of, let's say he takes an organ from a red dragon. It could be that the organ gave him the special ability to be immune to fire. Okay, he's immune to fire damage. He can't take that. However, it makes it to where his blood almost scorches anything that it touches. It's not quite like acid. It may be more closer to something like a hot heat, like maybe not quite lava, but something like that. A very very hot, which would mean like okay, if he gets cut open, a normal bandage ain't gonna help with that at any point, and he might be immune to it, but it's gonna have some physical other traits. For some other for some others, it could be um let's say for example, he got the ability to breathe underwater. Okay, he has skills there on the side of his neck. Those things would be very visible. They're not really going to hide that. Um and maybe the area around his neck has to be somewhat still wet. So on a cold day, the area around his neck looks a little frosted up where it would normally not be affected. Stuff like that. It would be traits that on first glance seem weird, but there is that almost unnatural trait to it. His the the powers should feel not quite dark or evil, but they should lean into the effect of okay, this is unnatural, maybe slightly monstrous, but not in itself evil.
Yeah. Yeah. It should just make someone feel uncomfortable, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, I like this idea. I've been messing around with something like this.
Yeah. And
Um,
even for the subclass, what they have it is they heal. Okay, if you get certain traits from a creature for CR and you want to cast those spells, those traits are associated with a particular spell slot. Meaning that once we get into higher levels, as a sorcerer, I'm still limited on how many spell slots I can still cast. And then for the passive bonuses that I get, I have to make a save, but if I save against it, I then have to permanently lose access to a sorcery point. Meaning that, okay, instead of having, let's say, 10 sorcery points, I may only have like maybe 7 because 4 of them are constantly reused up to maintain those passive effects. And then at the same time, any abilities that I would get would not be based on me. It would always be based off of whatever you put in front of us.
okay. So I have the couple of different class names that I was thinking about reskinning it. So the first one makes most sense. I call it like the vessel. There's also the anointed. I don't know if you like those names, but what do you think
I
about those two names?
I think the vessel works a little bit well. I think anointed would be like if it was more of a positive outlook, I could see
Yeah.
anointed being like something in it. Hell, I would think a warlock making a pact with a celestial might be anointed. That would
Yeah.
fit that terminology quite well.
Yeah, I think the anointed is the anointed is like very like holy in a lot of ways, but the vessel probably makes more sense. Um Yeah, I like this idea. But I guess I would have to. So in my world, I would have to change the name from sorcery to something else, or like spells to something else. But it could be something in the middle. I try to think of a good name for it though. 'Cause I know miracles doesn't necessarily make sense, but also really, I wouldn't. It wouldn't be spells either. It'd have to be something.
It would,
You know.
I think, a word I think might work quite well would be essence or essence. Ether is another one that some people like to use. Um, it's not really magic, it's more of a essence of the world. You're tapping into that. It's still a part of it, but you're not directly tied to it.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, yeah. I'll mess around with some names. I'll try to figure something out. But yeah. Yeah, I do like this idea. I mean, we could work on something. Um. Yeah.
At the very least, I would hope that you actually look through the subclass, because it is one of those things where the character concept I kind of have, I wouldn't say revolves around the subclass, but it was like I kind of had the idea. I then found the subclass and was like, okay, this gives a skeleton and muscle to the idea I kind of had. Um,
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, again, I like some of these ideas. It's just, I mean, my world has certain like restrictions to it. Is the only problem, right? It's not like nothing against like your class, right? I mean, the ideas. It's just I kind of have to like make them make sense in my game and have it be like in the up and up. But I mean, I'm pretty okay with trying a lot of stuff. Um, so yeah, trying to think. So I guess yeah, even coming to the idea of like the curses, it could be like trying to think of what would be the original like source or where you and then trying to figure out some of this stuff like like I know I think most in technically in like the D&D or whatever it's like usually it's like draconic I guess linked to a dragon usually is where a
Not
lot of that
quite.
stuff.
That's the best way I would describe sorcery is, as far as a sorcerer, the way I always describe it is you're either born with your powers or you have been infused with magic. That's kind of, for example, a character might be infused with wild magic because they were a part of maybe an area of the world they spend a lot of time in where magic acts a little funky, or maybe it's like a spell or something happened around them that it flared up and their body absorbs some of that innate magical talent. For some of them, it's like, okay, you have the dragon sorcerer, which is very much like you are tied to a particular type of dragon, meaning somewhere along the way, you're somewhere in your bloodline, someone fucked a dragon. Either fucked a dragon or got fucked by a dragon. And then you have a sorcery you have a sorcery class that directly uh I think it's divine sorcerer that directly ties them to to a very particular entity, making them not quite a demigods. It would be some of their power, but it wouldn't be like fully there. Um let me check on exactly, because there's actually a lot of sorcerer subclass of possibly. Um, then you have the shadow. You have the shadow sorcerer who gets their powers mostly because of their connection to because of a connection to another realm of existence, and they act as sort of a void in between. Um, yeah, the shadow. Then you got the storm sorcerer, which is basically the incarnate of basically nature. mostly it's storms, lightning, electricity, rain, but basically you are a embodiment of nature because of something you went through. So there's a lot of different ways of how you can take it.
Yeah.
But throughout the most part, most of it can be boiled down to either you were born with your abilities or you were infused by some other supernatural entity or force of the world that gave you your powers, to the point to where for many sorcerers, using their abilities is less of a knowledge that you get over time, and in some cases your sorcery might come about because it's linked more closer to your emotions, and by manipulating your emotions, that's how you cast your spells.
Yeah, so I guess the other option is I have this thing in my world called the Rift. Like one of the names is called like a Riftborn. And that was another idea I was coming up with. Also sounds kind of cool actually. But yeah, I guess yeah, I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, this is one of the classes I haven't really figured out exactly how I wanted to implement my world exactly. I mean, I haven't actually tested it, that is, I mean. So um I guess trying to find the sources that I'm like more okay with that are like maybe they aren't linked to actual like sorcery, but there's a whole bunch of other sources out there that could be, like different sources and different ways to use the source, I guess. But yeah, I'm pretty interested in testing this idea. So um trying to think here. Yeah.
Even the idea of exactly, even for something like a warlock, it's not exactly evil. It's more of a, you get your powers because you made a deal with an entity. Now,
Yeah.
it could be a otherworldly entity, it could be a devil, it could be an angel, but your powers is directly tied to a entity giving some of it to you.
Yeah. Well, I basically took that idea. I built I think the class called like a prophet, I guess. They're linked to some kind of an entity out there. It could be like an angel or like a saint, or it could be some neutral entity out there, I guess. And they like they draw their power, I guess, from that. Um, well, yeah, they're a little bit different. I mean, like very similar. Like they use like some kind of like a fire, like a long range fire or like a holy light ability. So they're similar, but they're maybe not identical, but they're similar in a lot of ways. Um, just trying to think here. But yeah, I definitely am interested in this idea. Um, I guess the other question really would become like I guess like where the source would technically would come from, like this class. I mean, like, 'cause I don't really necessarily want, I don't really want it to be like an evil source in here. I mean, like there's supposed to be like the heroes fighting against like the villains in a lot of ways. So it's like, but yeah, it could be like there could be like a dragon somewhere, and I kind of messing around with the idea of there being like dragons at some point in my world. Pretty rare, pretty exotic, but they would be exist in the game. There could be some other sources out there too. So it's like it could somehow your bloodline could have been linked to some entity out there, for some reason. I mean, I may still have to flesh that out a little bit more. Um, or maybe I need to come up with more ideas. That kind of makes sense because like I know there's angels, there's like dragons, there's demons. There might be some like major like maybe I need to look for some more mythological like creatures that could exist. Um, I think because I don't want to be like super open to everything immediately, but like still be open enough that like I got
Yep.
some more options.
Oh, even the
Um,
idea of werewolves, which I'm just gonna say this, vampires and werewolves, well, vampires in particular, there's so many different types throughout different cultures. Uh, yeah, you have the more Christian, Catholic version of a old style vampire, but there's other types. Like there are just Hell, even the Japanese have their own version of them. Um, so there's all kinds of different ways you can go about it. I guess the only real question I would have would be, um, you are linking everything together in such a way to where it's a very much like a Christian world, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. It's because I feel like my goal originally is that I want to build like a good solid starting foundation and keep that kind of built originally. I know it's going to start branching out, like it's already branching out quite a bit. So I feel like when I build I'm kind of building a different version of the sorcerer class. I want to get that established like the correct way, I guess, originally, because I'm sure there's going to be like a whole bunch of stuff going to come out, right? But if I don't have it right the first time, then it's going to be like always going to have a bunch of issues. When I build more stuff.
It is
So
always to it's always best to overshoot and then tone something back than it is to undershoot and try to keep adding stuff to it. That is always the best way because it's easier to take than it is to add more, if you get what I mean.
okay,
Um,
yeah,
and hell,
yeah,
even the idea of the sorcerer itself, you could call it all kinds of different things, but the baseline version of what a sorcerer is, yeah, I think meta magic you might change a bit here and there, but for the most part, it's a very solid concept that itself has a lot of wiggle room without any real big baggage behind it. The only baggage that a sorcerer has comes about because of the subclass or the origins of the sorcerer. But the sorcerer itself is basically kind of an open slate. You can easily reflavor it a whole lot of different ways. It's the subclasses or the subclasses that determine the foundation that magic gets their power from.
okay, yeah. I kind of feel you here. Yeah. So
I
and yeah, I
guess,
guess
I guess in a way
um
you could almost say that sorcerers gain their power through magic, but it's more natural magic. It wouldn't be it might be linked to a particular entity. It's almost similar to something like a barbarian rage, where clearly it's not just a rage mechanic. There is a bit of something magical going on. There is something a bit more primal to that.
yeah,
Eve,
yeah, yeah. Again, like I'm open to this idea. I'm trying to like put more of this stuff in the game. I guess I maybe it's for me it's like the terminology and the sources, right? So like if I change the word for magic to something else, then it's kind of like the same thing, but it's just a different source. So um yeah, I'm pretty open to this idea, but I'm
I
still
would
trying to keep it kind of Christian a little bit too. But
I
it's
would
like kind
also
of
no, you go.
oh yeah, I was just saying like yeah, like I mean I kind of feel like my world I kind of had to be like one part being like very neutral and the other part having like this Christian like foundation to it. So it's kind of a mix of both. So it's like it's hard to always
I
control and keep everything
I think it could work. It's just the problem you have, and I think this is a problem that is a bit more nuanced and difficult as it is. Um, you are trying to take a D&D, which is very high magic, high fantasy, and try to take it and bring it into a low fantasy world where there are very few gods and entities. Now, if it was simply you want to bring down magic and kind of work with that, I that has been done. You could easily do that, no problem. The problem I think the biggest problem you have is the fact of okay, you want to have this be something closer to a Christian basis, which would mean like, okay, God exists. However, as soon as you bring up the gods, especially in a D&D format, there is a massive, massive problem that you're going to come across. A problem that for other games, especially if you're dealing with fantasy, it's not not as big of a problem. The biggest problem you face is gods do exist. Not only do they exist, but they talk to mortals. Clerics are a divine element that showcases the power of their gods. So even if you say, okay, there's only the one true Christian God, well, even that's going to have some problems. Because if you look at Christianity, a lot of our, I wouldn't say a lot of our, because I don't really go to church as much. A lot of the beliefs of Christianity did get their start in other religions. And at the same time, a lot of people would like to say that Christianity only has one God. That's not exactly true. It's the aspects. You got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They're separate entities in and of themselves. And yes, the Holy Spirit is not God. They are incredibly different. And most people overlook that. But there is a world of difference. So as soon as you bring that into a D&D setting where it's multiple gods, multiple different type of races, you almost have to break the game to make it work in a way that it fundamentally changes how you're going to see it, how you're going to play it. Because there's going to be other races. There's humans, there's elves, there's dwarves. All of them are going to have their own belief structures. And if you say that, oh, there's only one God that truly exists that overpowers everything else, then that would mean that, okay, at that point, humans, which are in many situations native, but at the same time, also entities that were not created, that God came about over time. That would also mean that the other races of the world also have the potential of having their own god. But what makes the humans separate and giving them their own god, especially if it's if it's the only god that exists and would overpower everything, mean it's on the top of any pantheon, and everything else either has to be either somewhat directly tied to that entity in question, or you have to have a reason as to those clerics from other races who may have their own pantheons. Why do they have clerics? Because if it is based off of raw belief, then okay, their gods may not be real in the traditional sense, but the magic of belief is so powerful that in it of itself creates clerics of those gods. It's it in a way, as much as you may not want to hear it, I think D&D, especially with how 5th edition is and how high fantasy and how there's a lot of history and multiple different gods, it might be better, as much as you may not want to hear this, it might be better to see if there's other tabletop systems to see how they handle the problem. Because If you just want to be like, yes, we have one God and that's it, and everything has to go with it, even the idea that you can say, God is good, everything God does is good. Well, even with Christian beliefs, there's the devil. And realistically, there's no difference between the devil and the angels. They both look the same. They both use the scripture the same way. This is why, in some instances, there's huge debate even among Christians and Catholics. What is a devil and what is an angel when both speak of the same words?
Huh. Yeah, you have some good good critiques, some good feedback. Yeah, I was considering other systems. It's a little bit tricky sometimes. Um, and yeah, I do run into problems. I mean, because originally my plan was I was just gonna like hard restrict anything like all magic basically altogether, but it's like it also is very limiting. So that's
Yeah,
why I was branching out more and trying some more stuff out instead.
once you start to restrict that you can't use magic at all, 5th edition D&D just kind of falls apart because eventually magic, either you say magic doesn't exist in that realm, so every creature associated with magic does not exist. That would also mean that a lot of classes and subclasses don't exist. Hell, even with what I said, you could argue barbarians, as physical as they are still somewhat magically intuned. The monk is somewhat magically intuned. The rogue is even less so, but there's still those aspects. The only class that you could argue that has no magical link would be the fighter. And even that is pushing it.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, that's true. It's true. It is difficult sometimes. Um. I've been trying to be pretty open minded. I've been trying to make a bunch of alternative options. Um.
If you want me to describe how I describe magic and how I personally describe the different types of magic, I could do so to make it a bit easier. Because I've played D&D, because I've been DM before, and I've had to describe these concepts before. Um, the to me, when it comes to the arcane magic, I always describe it as if you are casting the spell, you are not breaking the rules of that world. You are using magical essences, or you're using magical means to take one state of matter to another to do something, but you're not changing the laws of that world. You might be twisting it, you might be turning it, but you're not breaking them. And then you have the sorcerer or clerics, or maybe not clerics, but druids who get their powers directly from nature. They are using natural forces that already exist. This is more natural magic, and in many times it comes in the form of maybe a creature has the ability to teleport by magical means. Do they have any control of it? Yeah, but they can bounce. They can teleport. Could a little bit of training get them fundamentally to make them jump a little bit faster? Yes, they could. But that magic still exists. That magic can't be taken away. Then you have something like divine magic, and divine magic works off the premise that it takes the rules of the universe and supersedes it by putting laws above it. So you're not casting spells, but you're more invoking your god's power to do something. Even if it would not naturally fall within the realms of that world, your god divine power allows them to invoke powers above the rules of that world. And then you have stuff like uh then you have stuff where I would describe something like witchcraft. It would involve something, how can I describe this? It would be taking someone who doesn't have magical means around them and would be channeling magical means to do their spells. They innately are not magical, but all the charms and all the potions and everything else that a witchcraft type of person might do, they're not casting the spell, they're channeling the magical means to do it. All of the charms, all of the things they do and process and the rituals, they're just the means to allow the magic to do the one thing and go to the next. That's why in many circumstances when it comes to witchcraft, it is often described that if you take the witch away, you take her spell book or he spell book, potions, and all the trinkets. If as soon as you take that away, that person is as much magical as anyone else, which in many situations are not.
Hmm.
That is probably the cleanest way to describe it. Where, yes, you could go with all types of different ways, and even sorcerers, they invoke the magic within themselves to do their actions. But again, they're not giving themselves more magical potential. They're just taking what they already have and manipulating it further. Could they get more out of their spells? Probably so, but in most situations, it's not that you, as a sorcerer, become more powerful to cast more spells. You just have more control of the thing that you already have. You're just unlocking that potential, and that's what makes it more natural magic, more nature magic, instead of it being more religious or arcane magic. Because with arcane magic, as you understand more about the rules of the world you're in, you in turn could become more powerful and grow your magic beyond what you had originally been able to do.
So, okay, so the word magic. So, say I wanted to change that word to a different word, kind of like I feel like just to make myself feel more comfortable with it, right? Say I don't like the word magic, but I wanted to change it to a different word that'd be more like aligned with my beliefs. What other words would you think would make sense, or
I
what ideas
think
do you think? Yeah.
I think throwing I think for me the term, if you wanted to use the term miracles, that should be used for a very particular type. And that would probably only fall into line with what clerics could do. Clerics would be more, would fall under the use of calling their magic uh form of, well, miracles basically. Um but when it comes to like the overall terms of magic, that would kind of come down because yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can describe magic. But the word itself, the term magic itself, in many contexts, doesn't hold any weight. You could call it a lot of different stuff, but the term magic means almost as much as you calling something air. Yeah, air exists. People know it exists, but just saying that it's air doesn't say anything. It's a word that means nothing in it by itself. Essence might be another way to describe it. Ether might be another way to describe it. Um, Potential might be another way to describe it. There's all kinds of different ways, but at the end of the day, you're describing a process that changes something about the world, but is separate from it in many circumstances.
Okay.
Like for it would be easier to say that magic and something like physics, they interact with each other. They do some stuff to do their effects, but physics is not magic. It can exist without magic being anywhere in the world. It's just a thing that is the consequence of that world. But in many circumstances, magic cannot exist without physics, because physics acts like a backbone of what it is potential. Or in many situations, it's not acting as the backbone, it is the limitation on how people think about magic. Even if there was a spell that could do something incredible or do something weird, the human mind might not be able to construct that spell because the concepts behind the spell are so alien that the mind rejects it fully on a subconscious level. And this is why some entities that are not a part of the material realm or maybe part of different realms might be able to cast certain spells because, well, they may not have the same concepts that most mortals have.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Well, yeah. I guess just for my world, like, I guess I'm just trying to. I'm trying. I feel like I'm distancing myself from like magic. I guess, which causes some problems, but it makes it different. I guess too. So it's. I don't know.
I, I guess in a way, as much as some people may not agree with this statement, uh, the world you're trying to build is very much similar to what's the book series? Ice and Fire is almost similar. Is it Song of Ice and Fire? Yeah, similar to that. Where yes, it's low magic. There is still some magic in the realm, but it's mostly kind of it's a low magic setting. Like I said, the one problem that I think you're having is okay, if it was just a low magic and magic was all that stuff, okay, it's perfectly fine. But then you're trying to, pardon my French, shove in Christianity into it, where Christianity is very much a broad statement. Where, okay, are you talking about Christianity when it comes to mainline Christianity? Are you talking more in the Muslim Christianity? Are you talking about more the Catholic Christianity? And yes, those three entities, although they are three separate religions, all three of them get their beliefs from the same core books.
Okay, that's an interesting argument.
Oh no, it's
Yeah.
not an interesting argument. That is fundamentally the truth. The
Oh,
Christians, like we have Christians have the King James version. They have their own Bibles, and the Muslims have their own Bibles, but they're all built off of the nearly three same books.
Well,
The
okay,
only
okay.
difference
So, for me personally, I would argue that Muslim and Christianity are two different things. I know there's some similarities, right? But I would argue they're two different religions.
they're
There are
different.
religions, but just two different religions.
There are definitely differences, but if you're talking about the root basis of the religion, they come from the same root, from the same nearly 3 books: the New Testament, the Old Testament, and in some cases, maybe an extra book to fill in the gaps of those 2 other books. Well, hell, Christianity, baptism, even the term baptism, as much as people like this may not think about it, the term baptism is a subset of Christianity. It is not the mainline Christianity. And that's something that most people overlook. So I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. My beliefs are going to be very different from a Catholic. But even still, many of our root beliefs are still the same. If I go to a Muslim, they have very different beliefs than I do, but fundamentally, there's a lot of similarities between the two. The only reason why I call myself a Baptist is because there was a huge disagreement among Christianity, and there was a literal group of scholars that came together to determine what is Christianity and not. And out of that, the term baptism that we know today came out of that.
Okay. Oh,
Let's
that's
just
some
put
cool information.
let's just put it this way. I am someone who, this is not an area that most people be like, oh no, it's simple. No, 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 no. This is an area I know fondly. This is an area I've actually looked into. This is not like just a throwaway line for me. Hell, even the some of the stories in Christianity, like for example, Noah's Ark and the flood, that concept didn't come out of Christianity on its own. In fact, other beliefs, especially the ones around the time of when Christianity started, had their own version of the flood. Hell, even the Romans, as much as people don't want to admit it, the Romans had as much of an impact on Christianity's beliefs as everything else. Yes, the Christian belief got adopted by the Romans, but there are just as many traditions that we have that we call Christian that were not from the original Christians back then, that were adopted by the Christians from the Romans.
Yeah.
Even to the point of the way we view Christ. Yeah, that version of Christ, the light skin version, that was literally created by the Catholic Roman Church.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, there's again, you're not wrong on some of these things. It's obviously like Christianity is obviously like it's very big and there's a lot of different it's very contentious to a lot of people, right? But yeah, it's I'm not even sure I'm trying to go with all this, but yeah. Um, I'm trying to think where the conversation was even going. Oh yeah. That's fair. I guess because for me personally, like, and there might be some. It's obviously debatable among a lot of people. I just like I personally I like to just kind of view as Muslims one thing, Christianity the other. I kind of draw a line. Maybe I'm even delusional in my own right, but that's just kind of like
Oh,
I have my views, and I just maybe I just don't want other views other than what I believe sometimes on certain
oh no,
things, even if that's wrong.
the three are very much different. Catholic, Muslim, and Christians, those three have gone to war more times than I think anyone is willing to count. Those three have been to war multiple times, and I'm not even like there's a whole lot. So the
Yeah,
fact that yes, they are very different, but there are a lot of core beliefs that are very similar.
that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Um, I mean, I personally I would hold that Catholicism just like it is a form of Christianity technically, although a lot of like the non-Catholics don't like Catholics, I guess. But I mean, technically they're technically considered to be Christianity. I think it's like a sect, like it's called. And they hold some different versions of beliefs, but it's still within the same um uh, Christian um but but yeah. Um so I guess even for my world, I guess like yeah, I guess I wanted to have like more of like a okay. So like my main like one of my points of view was I wanted to have the idea of like having faith be like thing because it's more of a positive view rather than me spinning my world by saying it's a like anti-magic world, for example. I think that'd be like come off as very hostile and negative. Like if I'm like pro faith, I think that's more of a positive disposition. Um, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
I'm not against it, and I think having something be pro faith mean that most of the powers of the world, instead of the world itself being magical, a lot of the powers might come from other divine entities. Those things can be very cool. There's a lot of games where that is absolutely the fact. Um, it's just from what I saw last night and talking a little bit about the others, it's you want to say like it's a Christian like how can I put this? From what I understood, yeah, there might be other religions, but it's almost as if it's like, yeah, no, there's only one true religion. And at that point where it's like, oh, only one true religion of the gods in a world where other entities exist that might have just as much power as the father, God in this case. Hell, if I remember correctly, when it comes to D&D, I think there's actually some context of Jesus being part of the D&D pantheon. I don't know if that's like I believe I read something along the lines that yes, Jesus is part of the pantheon. It might have been in older editions or maybe even 3.5. Because many of the gods in D&D, especially in the Forgotten Realms, like the Egyptian gods, they do exist, and they only came about because people from our realm went into the Forgotten Realms and brought their gods from the other realms in with them. Um, I don't know if that's truly the case for the Nordic gods. I know for the Egyptian gods, that is absolutely the case. And I think I read something that the Christian god had something similar. So there's already a precedence for this.
Oh, well, another thing I would say though is that I'm kind of like my world is basically its own setting. It's not really like the D&D setting inherently. So it's like it's um well like, I have my own like world, right? It's like it's set in its own world. So it's not the D&D realm, I guess. So it I'm not sure if that how that makes sense exactly how to say that, but I don't know if I built two different world maps, I guess the world too. I don't know if you probably I don't know if you looked at them or not. Um
I wouldn't even know where to begin.
yeah. So yeah. Well, I guess okay. So I guess the premise of the world I build is like basically that like God is the one main God in my world, and I just kind of don't really have, I guess, these other gods. They don't exist. There's not really any records of them, so they don't really like have a place, I guess. Other than some entities, I guess, that exist, like powerful entities. So
Now, is that because the other gods really don't exist? Or are you going from the premise that the world, or at least the group of people that you're surrounded by, don't have the view of the other gods? Like, is it more of the in world of that culture, or is there like just not really a whole lot?
well, yeah, I would make the argument that yeah, that in the world, that this world, that just there only is God. The God created it, or and that yeah, like these other quote unquote gods or whatever, they just basically I guess they just don't exist, or they don't have no association or culture attached to them, really.
Okay, then okay, if the god, in this case the Christian god, was the one who made the world in particular, okay, that's all well and good. But here's the question I have for you. If that is in fact the case, wouldn't that mean that the Christian God is are they a neutral God of creation and not really having their own opinions? Or are they, okay, I am a good aligned deity with my own like lawful and all this other stuff?
Um, well, I would just make the argument that it's just like the Abrahamic biblical God. I guess as he is. I mean, I know it's. I also argue technically it's a work of fiction and fantasy, but it's just like the Christian God, like one to one. Um, uh, maybe I can't even tell you exactly who he is. I guess 100%, but as he would be known or stated, I guess. Um, is it probably like a bad way of saying it, but
Well, I asked the question a very particular way because especially with how things work, um have you heard about the Great Wheel that people like to associate with D&D and how that works?
um, Great Wheel. I think I played those Pillars of Eternity. Is that kind of what that's supposed to be?
Um kind of. There was really two, like it used to be like more of the like a great tree where all the worlds connected, similar to the Nordic beliefs. But with the most recent way of how they've been dealing with the pantheon and the realms and all that, it's been described as more of a great wheel, where you have the where you have the material plane in the center. Then the two sides of it would be the Shadowfell and the Shadowfell and then the Feywilds. Then on the outer sides of them that surround it would be the smaller planes of the elementals, and then outside of that on the outer wheel you would have the you would smaller, maybe not smaller, but like individual planes of existence associated with each of the different alignments. And the idea is that each of the alignments have their own realms of existence, because those things are required for everything else to work. Meaning, if there is a good entity, there must also be their opposite. And if there is lawful, there must also be uh, chaos. And then
Okay.
the new and then the neutral of the material plane is where all those powers come together, where it doesn't equalize out, but the material plane is more of the embodiment of all of those concepts coming together, and all of those concepts having divine powers behind them. And in many circumstances, the gods themselves are the physical representatives of those concepts.
Okay.
So for
Oh hey,
example, if
oh hey, one sec. I just gotta use the restroom here really quick. We just like take a break for a minute. I'll come back. We can talk more about this. It's definitely interesting.
yeah,
Just give me like a minute. I'll be right back.
yeah.
Okay. Hey,
Hello.
all right, how's it going?
Good, good.
Whew. Okay. So, I'm trying to think where we maybe left off, or where we're trying to go from this.
I basically asked a question like as far as the question kind of boiled down to um if the Christian God made the world and everything in it, then does that mean that they are more a god of creation and neutrality, or do they actually have a will of their own? Like, are they supposed to be like, oh, they are the perfect embodiment of everything good?
Yeah. Hmm. That's a good question. That's a really good question. So, so I guess okay. So I guess from maybe this isn't a direct answer to your question, but it's kind of how I thought about it. So like in my world, I try not to like directly role play God. Like that's kind of blasphemous for me. Or try not to speak for him and like really role play him. But I guess I still have I still give it like he exists and like he does and stuff, does interacts with things, but he doesn't like show. He doesn't like show himself like a picture of himself or image of himself. He doesn't like really directly speak, I guess, but he still exists. Um,
It
I don't
would
know
be
that I don't know
more
that the answer.
easy to it would be more easy to say that they have others to speak for them, right?
Uh,
They have,
yeah, yeah. I
or
feel like that'd probably be true.
instead of speaking to God, it might be like, oh, if you pray, you might have Jesus come to you and give you what the Father is wanting.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. I
as
guess.
something like a
Well. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. I would make the argument that that the Lord Jesus Christ is God Himself. Technically, I mean, some people that's different opinion. I would argue He Himself is God, but yeah. But yeah, there could be angels. It could also I use visions and dreams. Sometimes they're a bit obscure. Like players don't really know what they mean, but they see a dream when they sleep sometimes or a vision, and maybe that's also how God would communicate, I guess, or an angel, or the church, or maybe some. There could be some other thing.
yeah. I, I at the very least, I asked this particular question because it kind of boils down to okay, so you have a entity that has what they have. They have all the divine will to do whatever they want. Then this might be something that I ask because hell, it might be a big question. It might not be. But when it comes down to what your character, or at least what your belief is, um, um, how can I put this? For how for example, the way I would ask this is so all of the other entities exist and everything else. How can I put this? Because this is gonna be a hard question about how I put this. If all sorts of magic, or magic may not be the right word, but if all of the magical side of things come from God, in Jesus in this case, and that's everything. Okay, that's that could work. Then you come down to the question of, okay, if magic comes from God, witchery, or at least the arcane magic, doesn't exist. If that is in fact the case, then every bit of magic comes from a divine source, and that should make it so that on a political side, or even divine side, maybe not divine, but I would say if that is indeed the case, the church is not only a powerful entity, it is the only source of magic in the realm. Which means I would imagine you're going to have scenarios where, how can I put this? They're not just going to be a political, they're not just going to be a political thing. They're going to have genuine, actual might behind them. So I would then have to ask the question of, with everything that's going on and all of the magic and all of the events taking place, if magic comes from the church, comes from God himself, and there's entities, in this case, there are people that your character might be that we're fighting against that are also using are also using magic, does that technically mean that that Jesus, who is giving them their power, allow them to use their power, even if it is for a evil act, if it's directly from them?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Well,
Because
I mean, I would argue that there's there's good and then there's also evil. So like I have there's evil entities or bad people, I guess, or there's demons, and it's kind of like a devil like creature. There's so there is bad people, I guess. So like good versus evil, I guess.
I asked this because I'm trying to understand, because it seems like there's a lot of questions I might have about the world, and I am trying to be like, okay, this is how this works, or this is how this works. It seems like, yeah, you have clerics, you have paladins, and those are directly tied to the good side of your belief structure. You have druids that can do the whole wild shape thing. But it seems, from what I understand, every other type of magic are, I wouldn't say they don't exist, but in some cases they probably very much don't exist. But have a lot of stuff that makes them, how can I put this, difficult. For something like a warlock, it sounds like that may not exactly exist. You may have a rogue who, in a way, you could say, like, yeah, they exist. The ranger I feel like would be a difficult one because they are tied somewhat to well, they're somewhat divine caster, similar to a druid, but not fully. but it makes it to where it's like, okay, if I want to play a character, I'm not following the normal rules. I have to almost be like, this isn't D&D. It's heavily modified to the point that it's not exactly following the same rules.
Hmm.
And it's
It's
hard
true.
for me to figure out. It's hard for me to be like, okay, I have a character concept. I have something I would like to do, only to then the first thing I hear is, oh, you want to play this, so are you all right for changing some stuff? I mean, I'm okay with it, but changing it too. And at that point, it starts to become like very difficult because it seems like you already have clerics in the party, you already have a druid in the party, and I have personally seen what happens when you have more than one class in a party. It seems like if I had to guess, the you is there not a whole lot of subclasses, I imagine.
Um, well, I have a bunch of different subclass options, I guess. But yeah.
But how different are they?
Hmm.
Because it seems like, if I'm gonna be honest, even if you had something of a sorcerer coming in, you already have like what, 6 players, 5 players?
Well, some of my players, yeah, I got like 3 to 4, I guess. Um, but
From what I have seen, it seems like the concepts you've as much as I may have a concept for a character, if you asked me like, hey, what would you like to play? I wouldn't even really know how to explain it. Because at this point, I think the biggest problem I face is, okay, what would even be available that isn't already being played? Because
hmm.
it seems like everything that could possibly be played is already done so with pretty difficult ways of explaining everything else.
Okay. Yeah.
Be-
Yeah. So I guess kind of the way I sort of look at it is, yeah, I guess maybe my world's not as D&D. I mean, it uses like the basic premise, but it's a little bit different, I guess. But I guess what I try to do is I try to focus on building a character and coming up with like maybe how they would, like what type of weapon they would use to fight, and like how they would go about like the different like attribute they would use, and then like, and like, it could be like a class, and then like maybe like a variation of a class to try to make it fit more. And like there's different I guess, yeah, like I use, trying to think the best way to say it. Like, yeah, maybe I do need to work on my character creation a little bit more too. Um, I guess maybe I'm not as class focused, I guess, as some people are. Some people like they have one class and they like you gotta do that one thing. Like I try to be more open, I guess, to
oh no,
different
I'm
variations.
open. Oh, I'm open to several classes, but at this point, I'm kind of just looking around the room and I'm thinking, what could I play that's not already being played? And a class in a D&D sense is kind of important for you to know, because I have seen what happens when you have more than one player do the same thing and then start stepping on each other's toes.
Hmm.
I wouldn't I wouldn't even know if I came in. I'm like, okay, I had the sorcerer idea, but I only really had that because I didn't have anything else to build off of.
Hmm.
Um, so for me, it's like I wouldn't mind playing a class or something different if it had the same, like if there was a different concept that could fit, if there was a different class or something that could fit in with the overall concept that I had kind of built up, I would have no problem doing that. But then comes the problem of, okay, how would I fit that? Like, what would be the case?
Okay.
I,
Well,
I
what I would say, my question would be like not necessarily as what would fit, what options are taken, what would fit. Like, what do you? It's like what would you want to do if you could, or what type of style or like kind of character would you want to play? I guess.
honestly, it's kind of well,
Well, like I could always reflavor something or make it so that it fits right. That could make sense. Even if it's similar, it could be a class, but you could reflavor it a bit if you wanted something a
yeah,
little bit different.
like I do kind of want to play with the whole curse aspect because I feel like that would be fun and interesting, especially for a dark fantasy game that I thought I was originally jumping into. Um, but even if that is the case, it's like, yeah, sorcerer is what I was talking about, maybe working because it was like the easiest. Even if that was the case, it, by the sounds of it, uh I there's really no direction. And as much as you may not want to hear this, it's like uh there's doesn't seem to be like, when I ask that question, it's like, okay, I can do something, I can kind of, there's doesn't seem as if there isn't a whole lot. And I wouldn't even know based off of what the others like, okay, what kind of character is everyone else playing that's not already being fulfilled?
Okay. Huh. Well,
I
well, I mean, I know we were talking a lot about hypothetical and intellectual stuff, and then if you want to go into like actual practicality, then too. Um.
I think
Well, yeah.
if
I
I
mean,
was,
oh, sorry.
you
Keep
you
going.
go,
Keep going.
you
Well,
go.
okay. So, I mean, I have been trying to formulate more core players. Like, so, like Mud, he's like, if even if you don't describe the class, the technical mechanics, but like, he's kind of considered to be like the party leader. He does some charisma, and then he plays a little bit like a tank. And then like that guy Fate, he plays more of like he initiates and like maybe in combat, or he maybe like yeah, he's fast. He does some like very quick, like attack, or and then maybe he pulls out. And like, yeah, he's playing like this monk, kind of going to this like the Witcher thing too. And then Snob, he's like this ranger, maybe a little bit going to an assassin. He doesn't really talk much during the session. It's kind of difficult to be with sometimes, but he does listen good though. So yeah, he kind of messes. I don't know, a little bit stealth, I guess. And then Chip, he's like kind of like this more aggressive fighter, I guess. Very kind of like a very big mouth sometimes too. He's very aggressive. He likes to get in everybody's face about everything. Maybe a little bit like the fighter or like a barbarian fighter. He switches his character a bunch too, though. He's kind of playing a paladin, but he's playing this big barbarian. He plays a lot of like direct melee. He plays a lot. So those are like the four characters, I guess. And I've had a bunch of other people, but they just don't show up or they leave. And I've been having to constantly change the party or the story a little bit too. Um,
So it sounds like you have a lot of melee people, right?
yeah. That's true. Um, Well, we have definitively have like a tank and like a party face, kind of, and then I guess we have like the aggro or DPS with some support, but like I feel like there is room for other options. Just trying to think, like, I mean, um, yeah, because like we don't really have like a religious, like, you know, like miracle heavy miracle user, really. We don't have that much like intelligence, I guess, for like a character, or there's certain, I guess, classes or options that aren't really being met too much. Um, hmm, but I don't know. But yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess some classes kind of overlap each other a little bit. They're not identical, but they are similar. But it would be, yeah. I don't know what your thoughts are from here. I don't. I probably didn't form this very well. But
It, I guess it was just one of those. It's like I kind of came in trying to. I guess in a whole lot of ways, it was me trying to fill in the gaps because I didn't exactly know what I was throwing myself into to a point. So it sounds like you kind of got a face of the party. You have you got tanks, you got some sneaky person. You don't really have a whole lot of support people, but when it comes to support, how would that happen? Because it sounds like you already have a bard of the party who's not really a bard. And then if I was going to go with more of the support, what options would there be?
well, for support, I mean, I guess, like, you know, it really would be that there's I feel like, yeah, there would be multiple options, but like depending on how you'd want to do it. Like,
Okay,
again,
give
there
me
could be,
examples.
okay, like there could be some type of like a bard type character. There could be a little bit more of like maybe even like a rogue. There could be more of like a again, like a healer type of class. Um, Maybe somebody who does, I don't know, some type of crafting or works on. Uh, um, I guess there's multiple ways to support, depending on how you want to look at it. It could be a more of a charismatic type of character too, or somebody who,
I feel
or it could
like
be
I
like,
said before, you already have a face of the party, so I'm kind of assuming that's the bard. And for me,
well,
just coming in and being like the new face of the party when I know almost nothing, I feel like would piss a lot of people off, especially if the face has been here for a while.
well, I don't know if he will like. He kind of just all the players kind of just decided that he was just going to be kind of be like the leader, I guess. That doesn't mean that, like, I guess he has some charisma, but there's also different ways of like, I guess, like different, like he's like kind of the split mix between a bunch of stuff, right? So he's not really like he does some charisma, but he also does some other stuff.
Like a jack of
So
all
it's like,
trades type of thing.
yeah, I guess he's kind of like a tank, and I don't know, he has, it's a little. He's kind of, I don't know. He went into some barbarian to get the rage, and then he wanted to become a bear so he can like mix them together or something.
Mm.
Um, but
So if I wanted to be a support with how you have the magic system, with because being a support player 9 times out of 10 is gonna lean more into the magic side of things. I don't see how I could be a support player without leaning into the magic.
well, Well, again, I just use them. I call them like faith, and I call them miracles. It's like my version of magic for my world, I guess.
Okay, if I wanted to
So yeah,
become more of a faith-based person,
yeah, yeah.
what
I
class
got a lot.
what classes and what would they do? What classes are available for that, and what are they capable of doing?
Yeah. Okay, so I guess for support role, then I have a bunch of other options for other stuff. But yeah, let me just try to think here for a second. So there are there is like I guess like trying to think like for like the intellectual side, I feel like intelligence and even wisdom goes pretty good with the religion side, but there's like different like scribe type class, or like I call them like the theologian. There's and then there is like the cleric, I guess. There's trying to think. I got um for support. There's also and like, there could be like the actual bard, which like he's like sing songs or string like does some kind of instrument. Um, um, there's I'm trying to think. See if I can pull up a little list even. But there's there could be like a very knowledge heavy type of characters. There's also it also could be like a scout or like a guide because they're gonna be traveling I think to this new map. It's like a guide could help, right?
Are you still there?
There's I'm trying to think. I can just try to think in my brain. But there's what else is there? Um, uh, because I'm
It,
through there for a second. Um, what else is there? I'm sure I have some other options here if I can think of what they are. Um, yeah, and also I feel like even on like a lot of DPS classes or something, they could be viewed as maybe support, I guess, or just a different version of their own. Like the Witcher could be like a character that uses like investigate stuff, or like deals with different. Like, there's different ways of dealing with stuff and helping the party. It could be like setting up traps or breaking traps down, or like detecting threats, like helping out like in a dungeon, maybe like a dungeon something, well, like an adventurer or something. Like even a rogue could pick locks. They could sneak around maybe, or they could help the party out that way. There's different ways, like like a bard like supports with music or helps soothe the problems. A cleric might heal or know about God or different things, or give like the moral anchor or the moral compass of the party, right? Because like, there's different roles that could be met with different things. Or like somebody who messes around with like technology or like armor or weapons and does like artisan type stuff. Um, or yeah, you help out in the battlefield maybe even, or like a medical person. Um, okay. I guess I have a few classes that are unique. I have one called like a lantern knight. Like a it's like or like an inquisitor, I guess. Um, they I guess like enforce the church's rules, I guess, or they kind of support the government, I guess, a little bit. Um, trying to think here. Or I guess I have like a tavern brawler. I guess that's another class I made. Or even a cavalier, person who rides like a horse and fights with like unmounted in combat.
um,
Um,
this might be a weird question, but where would these things be found?
well, I have a bunch of different notes and concepts and artworks. Um, I haven't really fully fleshed all the classes out exactly, but I have a bunch of stuff all over the channel. I could get you some more notes too. I guess depending on which ones you were interested in. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of notes all over here. Um, uh, well, I have this category tab. I think it's called like the Eternal Balance 5e compatible resources. I think it's called, which has a bunch of like my concepts and stuff. And some of which I guess I don't really have fully written down. Uh, well, I guess the other question is, does any of those things sound interesting to you?
I mean, I would I wouldn't mind being a support character because I kind of do find that stuff. But if I was gonna be a support character, I feel like with how new I am and playing into the character, there's just gonna be one thing I'm not gonna want to do, and that's gonna be being the moral support character. I don't know anything about this world, or even the concepts of what's considered moral or not. Um, so if I was to do that, I'm like, yeah, it might be a cleric or something. I might be this or that, like a support character casting spells and all that, or miracles in this case. Maybe a bard. But again, it seems like even if I wanted to go that route, there's no foundation to build off of. If I'm going to be honest, it seems like there's a lot of up in the air concepts, maybe a few stuff here and there written down, but it's like every time I'm like, okay, how can I supposed to say this? It's like, okay, I have a concept. Oh, that sounds, you could do this, do that, do this. And then as soon as I ask the question of, okay, what's actually available, it's almost like I start hearing crickets.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I also like, my world is a little bit of a work in progress still. Um. Well, yeah, I know. It's I'm still working on getting everything fully set up for people. Like my plan, my goal really is to like my plan is like you build the character. Like I focus more on like the role play in the story. Like you build the character, come up with like a character arc. You focus on like maybe what they would do, how they might fight, and then we build like all the different. We can work on fleshing a character out in a story, and then we can also build. We can find a class that would make sense for your character, and then work on it more. I think that's my goal is to build the character first, and then you can always make the mechanics make sense. After we have a character built, I think that's kind of my
Oh,
philosophy.
well, I
Um,
would agree to that point, but it's like I had something of a character concept, but it seems like you kind of have a very strict version of your world. And even with that in question, I wouldn't even know how to bring that character to life in this.
well, I have a class I built. For like, see if I can find it here. I called it they called it the vessel. Um, so I have to still have to hammer out a bit more. Let me see if I can find it here. Um, built it a while back. Or I guess I called it the Anointed. Um, here I'll try to put a little at so you can find it. See if here I have a couple. I know. Well, the other thing about some of these classes and stuff is if I don't have anybody who plays it or wants to interact with it, it's hard for me to um it's hard for me to like to work on something if like I have like 4 or 5 players playing specific classes and then no one ever interacts with something here. It's hard for me to I guess like invest heavily into keep working on something that no one interacts with. Here, let me put a little link here. Let's see if you can. Let me know if you can find this here. I don't know if this. showed it to you or not.
I see the
Yeah.
rift porn. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I was messing around with 3 different names. And these are some of these are old too. But yeah, I was messing around with the idea of like a sorcerer reskin. So
Does it matter which one I look at?
well, yeah, you could look at any of them. They're a little bit old and they're not heavily fleshed out well enough to be like perfected, but they're an idea, I guess, mostly what it could be. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I gotta work. This is like the one probably my 1 week area is like explaining and like building the character creation step. I know I gotta work on it more. So it's like again, the other thing is I've never actually had anybody play like because I restricted like the 3 major magic classes, so I've never actually had anybody play a character of those originally. Now I'm kind of bringing them in more, so it's like I guess I haven't really worked on them enough because I haven't play tested them very much. So it's a little. I guess maybe that's why it sounds kind of difficult. Um, without the experience of trying them, trying the trial, the test and error, it's hard for me to tell you what it would fully look like. Um,
And it seems like the rift, I'm reading through a little bit of it. It's like a void type of hunter. Like it's a void type of thing. It sounds, if I had to be honest, it sounds a lot like Shed Shadow Sorcerer.
well, yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, I haven't really fleshed this class out too much. To be honest with you. Um,
So, okay, as far as the original concept I have of the sorcerer, is there any part of that character that you thought was like, okay, this is good, this is one I would like to keep, versus things that you instantly went like, no, this is not anything good?
well, yeah, I
And
did
and
like the aspects of it. Yeah.
and no, I
Um,
don't mean like the flavor. I mean like mechanically, as far as like
yeah.
the subclass and the sorcerer. Is there any part of that that you actually did like? Or
Um,
like again, did you just skim through it, barely didn't even touch it, then
well,
acted surprised?
I haven't really read what you put up the link too much. That specific link yet. Really, I haven't had time. Or yeah, but
Because at this point, I don't know what part of it you're okay with. Like the thematical side, some of it you said you really like, some of it you really don't. And the thing you're instantly telling me no, you don't like is very much like, you may not like me to say this. It's like as soon as I brought up anything magical in any way, shape, or form, it was almost like a no, no, like no, no,
well,
nah, like
yeah. Because I'm restricting magic in the world. I don't
yeah.
support sorcery.
I
So it's like
I
I'm not
get
trying to like I'm not trying to what do you call it, like I'm being blunt with you, right? I'm not trying to like
yeah. And
um
I get that. I'm like to a point, but it's like, yeah, is there any part of it that you like?
well, I like again I'm trying to think of what I like about it. I like the idea of like the curse. I like the idea of like there's like the bloodlines. some kind of maybe an entity at one point that was involved earlier on. I like the idea of the trying to think, like, yeah, the idea of the different subclass options for the origins, like a little bit some nature. I also like the idea that there's things outside of a person's control. Like you were given a gift or some quality that you can't control and understand. There's some I do like some of the I like a lot of the stuff, the ideas of it. Um, well, like some of the other things that make me feel a little bit uneasy. Again, if I started putting this in the world and I felt comfortable with it, I might expand. Like the idea of like devouring like a corpse or something, or drinking like blood and stuff like that. It's like, to me, it starts coming more of a perversion. Like I like the idea of The Witcher like a lot, but there's some of the stuff is like a little bit too far for me. So I was just like, I was maybe like kind of scale some of that stuff back a bit. But I'm pretty happy with a lot of stuff, right? Um. So. Hmm. Hmm.
If it would be better, would it be better for us to end the call here and then let you kind of look over the document and for you to kind of write out what you think? Because at this
Well,
point, it's like I have a concept, but it seems like it is wonky at best, and it seems like I don't. How can I put this? I don't understand the party's needs, and I don't really have a framework to look at to be like, oh yeah, the party could have this. Because if I was a cleric or a bard, I could provide buffs, and that's an area that I enjoy doing. But very much so, I would not want to do anything that would be the moral rock. Because I feel like with me coming in, I would not know what the moral. I wouldn't know all of this other stuff because there's really a whole lot of not really a framework to build off of.
yeah. Well, I would say you don't have to be the moral compass of the party, and like, also you don't have to know everything about the world in the game either. Um. And like you also, I would say, by the way, you don't have to be a support character. You could just be an amazing character, and I'm sure that you would fit in and it would adapt for you a bit. That's kind of what everybody else originally did. They built the character and they started playing it. Um, so if you wanted, you could just build a character that you like, even if it would be something similar to someone else's. We could always make it different, and I'm sure you go down a different pathway. But it would be up to you at the end of the day too. Like you don't have to just fill a role for someone doesn't have. Like
No,
it
but
just
I do like to do that because it does give me some limitations. And yes, very much so. Like, yeah, I could build a character, we could do all that, but at the same time, I like to have an idea about, like, yeah, how can I put this? When I build out a character, yes, I build out the character mechanically. I kind of help use that to explain some of the stuff, but I'm building out a genuine character. And then at the same time, I'm also making sure that I'm not stepping on someone else's toes. Because I have seen what happens when you kind of go willy-nilly to make a character. I've played 5th edition enough, I've been a DM long enough that if I was let loose and just made anything I want, I know without a shadow of a doubt I could take a concept someone else did and really make it my own and very easily overshadow the person. Like, very easily. Because it seems like, yeah, you kind of have a leader of the party, you kind of have a face of the party already. Even if they're not the full one, I could come in and fill more of that role in, and that could benefit the party. I could be a cleric and help in that regard. But it sounds like you already have a roguish character. It sounds like you
Yeah.
already have a fighter, like a tank character. If I was going to come in and be something close to a barbarian, very much so, I would be overtaking them. And at this point, it sounds like you have a lot of melee people with not a whole lot of range options.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
if I was to fill in a character, I would probably be like, okay, support character, maybe if I could be mid range or a long range, I could easily do that. And I could fill in a niche, I could make a character with that. But then the problem becomes, okay, what type of support character could I make? Because I can make a character no problem. It's more the fact of I want to make a character that I enjoy, but also complements the party, not just randomly make something. Because I have seen people do that before, and that's how many tabletop horror stories start out. You just randomly make something without the willy-nilly of the party, or you make something that you know the party already has, but you try to do it better than someone else. That is a recipe for bloody disaster.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess so. Like based off of what you've heard, so I guess maybe like some type of a character that uses like range type weapons, and that could be good. We have very limited range type classes. Like kind of like a dexterity range type class that could work pretty good, right? And then I'm trying to think here. We have limited support, limited range. Um, Honestly, we have pretty limited, really, even like religious classes, really, for the most part, to be honest. Um, I feel like the idea of a tank, it's like it just becomes very tedious when characters are very hard to kill or very hard to fight. But I mean, yeah, we have like one true tank. Some people are a little bit defensive though. Um.
Oh, I would call the druid a fucking tank. I don't care what anyone says.
He is the tank. I'm not. Yeah, he is the tank. Um. But yeah. And then yeah, we don't really have that many like super intellectual type characters, I guess. Um. There's like
Okay,
not like
if I wanted to build a medium range support character and maybe cast a few spells, maybe help out the party, what classes would best fit that kind of archetype?
well, honestly, I'm feeling like the bard probably be like a good class.
Okay,
Um.
where's the bard?
Well, I mean, the version I would just I mean like I'm pretty chill with the bard. It's just the spells are like a little bit questionable sometimes. But I'm still that's the one of the ones that I like. I really like the bard class. Um, I'm just not like super into like the spell casting, but I call them more miracles. So you could play the bard. Maybe a little bit of a variant of one, maybe. Um, there's also there's
But
also that prophet class I was working on. If you're interested in that one, that could work too. Um,
okay, uh Prophet, where would that be? Because I'm trying to look through and there is no like genuine there's no place that's like, oh yeah, this is
well, yeah, I know, I apologize that I didn't come up with a lot of it being or nice. Again, my thing was that I was trying to say, I think earlier, is I haven't had anybody actually play these, right? So it's hard for me to invest in one thing that no one actually does anything with. So I'm slowly working on them. It's just I don't have them like fleshed out in a perfect like 5e version class. like written down for some of these. So it's like I've been working on them. So yeah, I think I have some of the stuff might be a little bit. I have one for the prophet class. I've been messing around with. It's kind of like it's like more like a holy warlock, basically, is what it is. It'd be like linked to an angel or a saint. But I have some files in there. I mean, I can give you a little link to a file if that's what you want.
Uh, I'm gonna be honest, Chief, with you. It seems like how can I put this? I think it's best if I walk. I think as much as you may not like to hear this, I think it might be best if I continue to look somewhere else. Because it
All right.
very much seems like every time I'm like, okay, is there something even remotely here? Because it seems like, yeah, you have concepts, but it's like, yeah, if I wanted to build a character, you would have nothing. And it's like, okay, you're trying to force me into play a game where I really don't have a character. It would be more of a, hey, you build out a, yeah, you got something here, and then you build out like the rough draft. I'm like, you don't even have anything solid for me to play. No, not really.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, yeah, I guess there's different options, but I mean, again, I know again, like I maybe I wasn't clear and really we didn't have a lot of time to talk again. Like, some of the premise of my world is like I wanted to support Christianity, and I wanted to try to avoid the players having access to like spellcasting, right, or witchcraft. So that was like my main premise, right? So I'm trying to make the world make sense and work on stuff. So I know that's difficult for a lot of people to accept. That I don't want magic, as like for the players. So I know it's difficult. But yeah, I mean, because the other option, I guess, could be that we could just sit down and just build a character together, and work on a character and flesh it out, piece by piece. Which honestly, I think is probably the best solution for building a character, anyways. We could just go through and build a character if you wanted. Um, and then also I could just give you equipment and give you stuff, and we could work on making it all make sense. I mean, we could just do that. Honestly, that'd probably be the best solution, anyways. I've done that many times. Maybe a little more of a custom character, I guess, if you're okay with that. It's up to you, though.
I maybe if things were a little bit better, maybe because I I don't even know, like, roughly speaking, I wouldn't even have a framework to come in with. Because it seems like I have a character concept, but it's like I
Well,
wouldn't
tell you,
even
why don't?
know.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Maybe you don't know. Okay, do
Yeah,
you want to just
and
sit down with me and try to work on a character? You can flesh this character
I
out more. I mean, I
personally,
understand you don't really.
as much as you may not want to hear it, even if you give me a written response, I would like it if you actually sat down and looked at the thing I sent to you and just kind of look it over and tell me what you thought about that, because that was kind of the original concept with everything else. And again,
Well, it's like again, like I'm not necessarily. I mean, I'm not playing like I'm not using like magic, right? I'm not using a sorcerer, so like it'd be
even
difficult.
even if you weren't using sorcerer, you can look at the concept of the subclass and be like, yeah, I can see what the thought process that you were thinking about this. Even if we went with something different, you at least have an idea about, okay, this is what I originally liked. This is the kind of idea I had. You at least have a rough draft of what the concept is, but it doesn't even seem like that is even there. Because we can be talking about which way of, oh, I would like this or I would like that, but I seem to have a good idea about what the subclass is and what the limitations are. It doesn't even seem like you don't even want to look at it. Even if it had concepts that you're like, yeah, even if we change the names around, I would be comfortable with you if you just want to change some names around. Okay, we can easily do that. I got no problem with it. But it's beating around the bush, whereas like not even that might work, and I wouldn't even know what to begin with. So that's why I'm saying like it could be better if we end the call here and then you look over the subclass that I sent to you and kind of read it over. Then at that point, maybe we could do something. With this point, it's like I wouldn't even know what character I would be playing.
Yeah. Well, I have looked over this. I mean, it's not super long. It's just
But have you
like monsters and like
have you thoroughly read through it?
well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe you're right. I mean, because like again, like me personally, I'm just not super into like the arcane and the magic and the sorcery stuff. So it's like, yeah, maybe it's just difficult for me to accept. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it won't work out. But yeah, maybe it's best that we end it here. I don't know.
It's like
Um,
because like I said, it's like even if you just read through, you at least have a good idea about the original starting point.
yeah,
And even if you feel like there's parts of it that you agree with, parts of it you don't, it would at least give us the same framework, the same blueprint to can build off of. But again, I don't even know if that would work because, well, I don't even know if you've read through it. You said you skimmed through it, you likely skimmed it, but did you actually sit down and look at it?
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, it's probably not going to work out. Even if I read through it, it's just not going. I don't think it's going to work out at this point. It's just too difficult between me and you. I feel like at this point. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It is what it is, though. But it was good talking with you. Yeah.